What's up, guys? Have you ever heard of Grindr? It's a gay dating app for the homosexual community. Quite similar to Tinder, except for you can go on there and find people that are local to your area who are looking for friends, dating, hooking up, sex, drugs, rock and roll, you name it, it's on there. Well, I just deleted mine, and after this story, I'd imagine you'd be deleting yours too. I'm Christian. Welcome back to Butcher True Crime. So this story that I'm going to cover today takes place in the frigid state of Michigan. Woo! It's freezing up there. Anyways, it takes place actually in a small town called Schwartz Creek, and it's right off of the Flint area. And we're going to go there right now. We're going to go on a little travel trip, and we're going to meet a kid. Well, I call him a kid because he's young. He's 25-year-old Kevin Bacon. And no, not the actor that you all see on TV. This is another person with the same name. Kevin Bacon was 25 years old. He graduated at Schwartz Creek High School, and he was a gay man. He also attended cosmetology school, where he graduated and started doing people's hairs. He ended up working at a place called Uniquely Yours, which was right across the street from his parents' house. So, that was pretty convenient. He lived with his friend named Michelle. They rented a place together, had several cats and a dog, and by all counts, everybody said that Kevin was the nicest kid on earth, would do anything to help anybody or just to offer an ear or a shoulder to cry on. Like a pretty rad dude. Kevin suffered from some depression growing up, some body image disorders, and was known to, do some self-harm to himself. So, he was a good person, but insecure. So, that's a lot of people are at that age. So he was working, and very happily working, at this salon. And he had dreams and aspirations to move to a bigger city. He wanted to go to Chicago, where the big city lights are, and he lived in such a remote area that there was really nothing for him to do except go on Grindr, right? So this takes us to the date of December 24th, 2019, Christmas Eve. So Kevin Bacon, he had different color hair. He had purple hair at the time. He was cutting his sister's hair as well as his mother's hair at his salon in preparation for the Christmas holidays. They often had a dinner Christmas Eve and then a brunch on Christmas Day. And he decided not to attend the dinner on Christmas Eve because apparently he had some riff with one of the family members and he wasn't comfortable, so he decided not to attend the dinner with his family. So instead, he went home and he hopped on Grindr, and he was looking for any local people around, and he came across a profile with a man named Alikas Kai Volka. And he was very curious because he saw that the guy was into BBSM, which, if you don't know what that acronym is, it's like a big-bellied, sexy man, and that's what Kevin was, apparently. He also saw that this Alikos Kai Luka was also into BDSM, which is bondage and domination and sex and control, and often involves leather and, all that type of fun stuff that we like to do. So he found this person on Grindr, and he agreed to meet up with him at the gentleman's place. So Kevin gets into his car and starts driving at approximately 5 p.m. on Christmas Eve. And he arrives at the house of Alikos Kai Lucas, who was his stage name. His real name was Mark Latunski. So Kevin would go in there, and I'm jumping back. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the owner of the house, Mark Latunski. Now, Mark Latunski was a 50-year-old man, brilliant dude. He went to Central Michigan State University, where he was studying chemistry, and then he got an internship at Dow Chemical, and then he would go on to Iowa State University and actually get a master's degree in chemistry. And then he'd land a great job, and he was making well over 6 figures a year. Pretty damn good to me. So he would marry in 2001 to his ex-wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, Emily, and they would have 4 children, and they would raise them in this home it's called Maurice, Michigan, which is in Bennington Township, about 25 minutes away from where Kevin Bacon resided. So his marriage was on the rocks because Mark Latunski, also known as Ali Kaskai Lucas, suffered from several different mental disorders. In fact, he was hospitalized 4 times between 2010 and 2012 and diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, anxiety, bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder. I mean, he had a list of conditions that he was dealing with. And they wanted to put him on medication, but Mark refused to. He didn't believe that chemical medication was the way to go. I kind of believe it, but now after hearing this story, I think he should take the meds. So now he would, like I said, he would have 4 children. And then in 2013, his wife got fed up with him just not taking his medication. When he didn't take his medication, he would watch horror films and torture films, walk around talking to himself. He would stay up all night, all hours, stay out. I mean, he just became kind of like delusional and paranoid. So she ended up divorcing him in 2013. Now, he had visitation rights with the children, but oftentimes, like, the children would come over to visit him, and he would refuse to let them leave, or would when the ex-wife came to pick them up, he would stop them at the door. He would threaten to kill the kids' animals. He was just kind of like a loose cannon kind of dude. So that went on for a little while, and then in 2016, Mark Latunski, who I thought was straight at the time, ended up going on Grindr and meeting a gentleman named Jamie Arnold, and they hit it off right away. They were into the same stuff, the same leather getup, and the dungeons, and the sex, and the slings and swings and automobiles. I mean, they did it all. So they were together for approximately 3 years until Jamie Arnold actually ended up leaving too, because he couldn't take the lifestyle of Mark Latunski. I mean, he would bring guys home. He was into heavier set guys. He would bring them home, and he tried to get his partner Jamie involved, and Jamie would work all day and come home and just want to rest, and he was just getting older and tired of that whole lifestyle. So he would leave Mark Latunski to his house by himself in a beautiful, beautiful house on acres of land. Like I said, he made a lot of money, so he actually lived a very upscale life. So now on October 10th of 2019, there was a phone call that came into 911 dispatch from a gentleman who was born in 1973, so he was about 47 years old, who lived in New York City, who had actually met Mark Latunski under the name of Jamie Arnold at the time, which was Mark Latunski's ex, and actually invited him to his house from New York City. I mean, the guy obviously didn't want to do it around, or maybe couldn't find somebody in New York, but something about Mark Latunski, or Jamie Arnold, as he had his picture up that way, really drew him, and he was really interested. So he ended up taking a 20-hour bus ride to Michigan, to Morris, where Mark Latunski resided. And Mark would pick him up at the bus stop and bring him back to his house. But before they went back to his house, they would stop at a store and they would grab a soda. And that was all that this gentleman could remember of that night. He woke up the next, it was probably several hours later, he woke up in a dungeness basement, and his ankles were bound and tied with clasp and leather, and he couldn't move. and he looked over and he saw that Mark Latunski was sleeping as well. So he's like, what the fuck happened? He doesn't know. He grabbed a butcher knife, which happened to be laying there, and actually cut the bondage of his ankles off, and he would free himself and start running out of the house, down the street, booking it as fast as he could. And he actually calls 911. Now, the calls for 911 are actually out there, so you can go and surf the internet and actually hear these calls. But this guy was so fucking scared on this call. He was calling 911. They were trying to ask him his name. He couldn't do it. He was crying. He was hyperventilating. He said, some guy's trying to kill me. Some guy's trying to kill me. He drugged me. I know he drugged me. And I woke up and I'm in this house and I don't know where I am. And the 911 dispatcher said, well, what city are you in? And he goes, I'm in Detroit. Well, they end up going back and forth, and he's trying to give them street names, and nothing was lining up. He just really wanted help. And he goes, I just want help. I don't want anything to be filed. I don't want any cases. I just want to go away and pretend that none of this ever happened. So the 911 dispatcher is talking to him, and eventually they ping his phone and find the exact location, and he was actually walking on the road of Mark Latunski's house on Terrell Road. And the police came and got him, and he ended up going back to New York City, didn't press charges. After that, in the last 10 years, there had been a dozen phone calls to the 911 dispatch or police department from various people, and also his ex-wife and ex-lover, who were basically, he was having his mental psychotic moment. So they were just basically calling to get, assistance. But no charges were ever pressed against him. I feel like they should have looked a little bit more into this poor guy who's in his 40s, running around half naked, just cut himself off. Like, you'd think they'd look more into the person's house, even if this guy didn't want to press charges. Now, a part of me kept saying, like, why wouldn't he want to press charges? But, you never know people's situations and circumstances. He may have not have been out to his family as a gay man. In fact, he claimed that he was bisexual on the 911 call, and that he had met this guy and actually took the bus all the way to see him. But, he wasn't like, basically he just left and said, I want nothing to do with any of this. Now, we're going to hop to November 25th. Another call comes into 911 from a 29-year-old kid. Well, I call him kid because they're young. 29-year-old gentleman, I'll call him, who actually escaped in a similar fashion from Mark Latunski's basement. They had also met on Grindr, and they were talking back and forth. This kid, 29-year-old, went over there. They had fun moments, I guess, but then it got scary, and he broke loose out of the house and started running, and he called 911. And again, this video is also out there where you can actually hear the recorded version of the conversation. But I've never heard somebody so scared in my life. He said, this guy's trying to kill me. He's trying to kill me. And the 911's just like, go to the closest neighbor, go seek help, go find somebody. And it was roughly 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And he goes to the neighbor's door, and he knocks on it, and the dogs start barking. And the guy comes out and sees a 29-year-old with a leather kilt on, and those leather like belts that go across, and nothing else. And he's saying, help me, this guy's trying to kill me. He's coming after me, he's trying to kill me. And he was all bleeding and stuff, because apparently he had stabbed him a couple times. And the guy's just like, well, we'll get you help, Well, about a couple minutes later, a silver SUV pulls into the neighbor's driveway and gets out, and that's Mark Latunski. And he's going out and he's saying, don't worry about it, this is just a misunderstanding, we were getting into some kinky stuff, but I really wanted to come get my kilt back. He was more concerned about a $300 kilt that this kid was wearing rather than what he was actually doing to this kid, and which was making this kid so fearful for his life. It was wild. So this kid would also come out and say he doesn't want to press charges. He doesn't want anybody to know about it. Doesn't want anybody to know that he's into bondage or leather. So the cops dropped the ball again. They're like, okay, if you don't want to press charges, we're not going to look into it. Well, I mean, for the love of God, if you've had a dozen calls in 10 years and 2 people in 2 months calling you saying that somebody's going to kill you, look into it. Is it because they're gay? Is that why they didn't want to look into it? Sounds strangely similar to like John Wayne Gacy when he lured in those teens and they were gay, or he was gay, but not all of them were. But nobody took it seriously. Them teen runaways, or like Jeffrey Dahmer has naked guys running out of his apartment and the police don't look into it. It's not a big deal. It's just a bunch of gay dudes doing that stuff. So I don't know. This sheds a really poor light on the police department, if you ask me. But whatever, that's just another case. So now we're going to go to Christmas Day, which is December 25th. Now, Kevin Bacon, who was supposed to go attend a brunch at his parents' house, never showed up. And people thought that was very odd because Kevin really did do what he said he was going to do. I mean, this kid had a lot on his plate, working full-time at the salon. He was studying applied psychology at Michigan University of Flint. And like, he was just trying to have a better life. So, you know, his roommate, Michelle, gets crazy nervous and starts, you know, calling the police and putting up missing signs for Kevin. Like, nobody knew where the hell he went. And it wasn't until the 27th or the 28th where they were able to actually ping his phone, which brought them about 25 minutes away to a vacant parking lot, and his car was sitting there. Well, they looked in his car and his cell phone was still there. His clothes were still there. So somebody must have had to undress him or give him another change of clothes, because his roommate Michelle said he didn't leave with anything else. His wallet was in there. Everything was in there and intact. So on the 28th, I guess a search warrant was issued for Mark Latunski's house because they were able to track it through the Grindr application and the conversation that he was having with this alias, Alikas Kai Lucas. So they went to his house and they knocked on the door, and Mark opens the door and introduces himself as Alikai Lucas and says, oh yeah, come on in, come check it out. You know, there's nothing going wrong. You know, we're just into a little kinky shit. Well, the cops found a trap door that led into like this basement, this dirty, mysterious, scary, doomy, gloomy looking basement. And it was dark, so one of the police officers put on his flashlight, and there, lying with his ankles tied and bound to the rafters, hanging, was Kevin Bacon. He had 2 puncture holes in his neck, and he had his neck completely slashed, and he was upside down. So I don't know if they were trying to drain the blood faster and kill him faster, but they saw him, and they also saw that Kevin Bacon had been castrated. Now, Mark Latunski was known to like Rocky Mountain oysters, which were bull testicles, around the new moon for some reason. So instead of using Rocky Mountain oysters, which he had in the freezer, he used Kevin Bacon's balls or testicles as his supper. He would fry them on the pan. In fact, like Kevin Bacon's DNA was on the pan and Mark Latunski's DNA was on the handle, so you know he fried them up and ate them for dinner. And he planned on like taking his muscles out of his body, and he had ordered like a dehydrator to like make jerky and stuff like that. So he had a lot of plans for this guy. But God, did I feel terrible when the police, like they found him in this condition, and a lot of the police were like totally freaked out. So they would arrest Mark Latunski immediately, and he would go on trial, and they would actually find him incompetent and that he wasn't able to stand trial. So they sent him to a bunch of psychiatrists to seek help and you know, to try to get his mind clear so he could actually go on trial. Because when he first was asked by the judge what his name was, he said his name was Thomas Edgar Hill, and that he belonged to the Hill clan of Wales. He was of Welsh descent and a lineage of Vikings. That's what he said. This guy was like just making up shit. Like, he was truly psychotic. But it just kept getting postponed because then COVID happened and nothing was really settled. So they eventually found him competent to stand trial, and he would go up there, and his defense attorney was pleading insanity at the time. But the judge kept saying, this doesn't make sense. This was premeditated. This was calculated. He was luring people in. It wasn't like the case of, like Austin Harris, who just flipped a switch and started eating this guy. This guy had it all planned out and mapped out. So he would stand trial, and at the last minute, 2 weeks before his sentencing, Mark would come forth and admit to doing everything. He admitted to killing him. His first claim was that Kevin Bacon wanted to commit suicide, so that he was actually assisting Kevin in a suicide attempt, which was total bullshit. Even when they looked up the Grindr conversations between he and Kevin kept saying, I want to have fun, I want to have a good time, but please just keep me safe. Just keep me safe. Promise me that. And Mark Latunski obviously was just like, yeah, of course. And then he goes there and ends up getting killed. This poor kid, he had purple hair. Even the second guy too, the 29-year-old, had purple hair. He had this thing for apparently purple-haired, heavier guys. I guess that was his type. So he would plead guilty, and they would sentence him to jail for first-degree premeditated murder and body mutilation of a body or a corpse. So he went to jail, and he almost actually died in jail. They found Mark unresponsive in jail, as he had not eaten for 5 days. He was going on a hunger strike. So he was rushed to the hospital and then got better, and he's still serving his life sentence out in jail for committing this heinous murder on this poor innocent victim. And I feel like it could have been stopped if they had just done something with the first 2 calls, or perhaps the first dozen fucking calls, I don't know, but we'll never know what goes through people's minds, will we? But I know for a fact that I will never get on Grindr again. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe for more videos and notifications. Set that. You can follow us on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram at Butchered True Crime. And I would love to hear your input and your take on this story. Do you really think that he was insane? Do you think that he knew what he was doing? I mean, just give me your feedback. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. How about that? So please follow us. Please like our content, and we will see you on our next video, which is going to be a good one. So thank you for watching Butchered True Crime, and we'll see you next time.